Welcome to the Friday edition of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I'm your host, King Jemison, coming at you just a few hours after the Penguins laid an absolute beatdown on their hated cross-state rivals, the Flyers. We're going to talk about that win, of course, and that snapped a three-game losing streak and saw the dramatic return of the Penguins offense that had gone cold during that losing streak. We're also going to chat about the impact of the fourth line. They were once again incredible in this game and just had a massive impact. And we're going to talk about just the dazzling playmaking of Evgeni Malkin this season. And he's gotten right back where he was before the injury since his return and is really such a driver for this Penguins offense. But before we get into all of that, I want to remind you that this show is presented by FanDuel, where you can bet on all the NHL action. Pretty light slate tonight, but they do have some daily puck drop specials over at FanDuel. You can bet on which squad will be the lowest scoring team among the 5 games. And the St. Louis Blues, the lowest scoring team in the NHL, are playing the very stingy Lightning defense that we saw in Pittsburgh on Tuesday during the Penguins shootout loss. That game was 1-1 through overtime. And that seems like a pretty good bet at plus 500. A lot of other stuff to choose from as well over at FanDuel. So go check that out. Now, on to the Flyers game. That was last night, Thursday night, as I'm recording here on Friday morning. It was a very cathartic start for the Penguins. We know the struggles they'd had in their 3 previous games to score. They scored just 2 goals over those 3 games, and they managed to pick up a much-needed point against the Lightning, but those other 2 were regulation losses to teams that you would really like to pick up points against, the Flames and the Bruins. But after it took them almost 58 minutes to score Tuesday against the Lightning, they were on the board in about 2 minutes on Thursday against the Flyers because they got an early power play 23 seconds into the game. And the first power play unit did almost nothing with it. And it was kind of like an oh boy moment. Like, is this really going to continue these offensive struggles? And then the second unit comes on. Ben Kendall delivers a beautiful backdoor pass to Justin Brazeau. And we know that when he gets the puck around the net, Brazeau, he knows how to put it in the back of the net, and he did there again to give the Penguins a 1-0 lead. They kind of dominated the first period from there. Brian Rust added another power play goal, this one off of a feed from Chris Letang. Sidney Crosby registered an assist as well. And for Crosby, that was his 100th career assist from between regular season and playoffs against the Flyers. The second team he's reached that mark against, the other being the Islanders. We know how much this guy loves playing the Flyers and loves killing the Flyers, which he did again, and we'll talk a little bit more about his impact. The second period, the Penguins got on the board again, built a 3-0 lead about a minute into that period on a connection that's starting to have some staying power. Evgeni Malkin to Igor Chinakhov, the Russian pass. Chinakhov, when he gets the puck on his stick, in a shooting position, it's lights out. And it is a very tough day for the opposing goaltender. And Malkin just seems to have this knack for finding him. So I actually really like that those 2 are staying together on a line, even though we know how good the line of Malkin, Mantha, and Brazeau was earlier this season. Just I wouldn't split up Chinakhov and Malkin at this point, the way they're playing together. And, at that point, it looked like the Penguins might just rout a team that had played the previous night, that had lost 4 games coming in. And yet the Flyers kind of regained the momentum in that second period. They tilted the ice back in their own favor. They got a goal almost immediately after that Chinakhov score. They were pushing to get another. And then right at the end of the second period, as they've done so many times this season, the fourth line makes a play. Blake Lizotte carries the puck into the offensive zone, finds Noel Acciari in front of the net, who hits the post. But that doesn't matter because Lizotte just races around, goes and gets the puck again in a battle in the corner. He passes to Lizotte again, to Acciari again. Acciari shoots again. This time it's saved. Lizotte has come all the way to the other side of the goal again, and he's able to bat the rebound out of the air and into the net. At that point, a 4-1 lead going up against a tired team, you felt pretty safe. But they went ahead and added 2 more goals at the beginning of the third period. Anyway, once again, fourth line had its stamp on this sequence. We see a huge hit laid by Blake Lizotte. We're talking about 5'9", 176-pound Blake Lizotte, and he absolutely wiped out Denver Barkey, who admittedly is about the same size as Blake. And then he has to fight Matvei Michkov immediately in the aftermath of that. I would say both players acquitted themselves pretty well in that fight. And Michkov gets a 2-minute it was called roughing, but it was for instigating that fight. And Crosby goes ahead and scores on the ensuing power play, his 60th career regular season goal against the Flyers. Man, he just loves to light up that team, and he did once again. It was a beautiful, beautiful sequence there on that Crosby goal, though. Some of the best puck movement we've seen all season, from Raquel to Malkin and Malkin to Crosby, and that was a gorgeous cross-ice feed for the captain to get down on one knee from the circle and rifle it in. And then just, about a minute and 17 seconds after the Crosby goal, the Penguins get another one. This one, a feed from Tommy Novak to Connor Dewar, who wanted to make sure that everybody on the fourth line got a point. And Dewar, who is quietly up to 9 goals this season, has a pretty effective shot when he gets opportunities. He put that one in to really seal the rout. At that point, it was 6-1. The Flyers would get a couple more goals later. Stuart Skinner played very well in net. He had 30 saves. The goals late, they truly were garbage time. I did not love how the Penguins once again had some troubles to cleanly close a game, but I think by and large that this was not a damaging third period in any way. The Flyers never got closer than 3 goals. And Skinner, he kind of had to stand in there and make some big saves at different points in the game, particularly in the second period. They needed him, and he's playing absolutely incredible right now. 4 wins in his last 5 starts. In his previous 4 games, he'd only allowed 1 goal. He'd only allowed 1 goal until about 10 minutes to go in this one as well, after his team pretty much had the game in hand. I understand the continued goalie rotation. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think the moment you see any struggles from Shilovs, I'd say it's time to ride Stuart Skinner harder, because he is producing at the kind of level that looks like the former All-Star version of Stuart Skinner. And that is a really encouraging sign for the Penguins, a trade that just continues to look better and better for Kyle Dubas and co. So that was a quick look at the game. Let's take a very, very quick break and then come back and talk a little bit more about 2 of the big stories of this game that are really 2 of the bigger stories of this season. Back here on the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast, I'm your host, King Jemison, and in the first segment, we talked about the Penguins' 6-3 win over the Flyers on Thursday night in PPG Paints Arena. Once again, Sidney Crosby picks up 2 more points. He's the all-time leader in goals, in assists, and points against the Philadelphia Flyers. He went ahead and added to his lead in all of those categories Thursday. But listen, this is a game that you easily could focus on the stars, because Malkin, Letang, Crosby, they combined for 5 points. They did it again to the Flyers. But I think that the fourth line deserves a particular shout out for this game. I mean, I just ran through sort of what happened. That goal at the end of the second period was huge. I think if that does not happen and it's 3-1 entering the third period, the way the Flyers had played for most of the second, I think it could have been a scary final 20 minutes for the Penguins trying to hold on to that lead. And then rather than just being up 3 goals to start the third period, the fourth line delivers a momentum-shifting play again. Blake Lizotte, fresh off getting a 3-year contract extension Monday, lays the wood to Denver Barkey. Clean hit, great hit. And then because that causes a very justifiable fight from the Flyers, the Penguins get another power play, and Sidney Crosby converts. The power play was 3 for 4 in this game, and it's just humming at another level. I think it's really, really helpful for them to have Evgeni Malkin back. But, after this game, like we've had so many times, Dan Muse and other players were asked about the impact of the fourth line. And I think some of those quotes are just sort of worth reading, because they really stuck out to me. Sidney Crosby talked about how every single day they compete hard. They definitely set the tone with the way they play and help us in so many different areas. That was the captain. Then how about Skinner? He said, from day one, even games where I don't play and I just get to watch them, it's pretty fun. That line brings a lot of energy. They play the right way for the whole 60 minutes every single time. They always have a third guy high. They're always grinding pucks down low. They're getting shots. They're going into the dirty areas, getting in front of the goalie. It's amazing hockey to watch. I think that's why that line is very successful. And Dan Muse was asked if he's sort of considered ever breaking them up, the line of Blake Lizotte, Noel Acciari, and Connor Dewar, because there's been shuffling in pretty much every other part of the forward lineup with injuries and guys coming back. And he really hasn't touched that line. And he said they make it tough to. Like, why would you break up something that's working so well? And the stats show that is the case. They played the second most minutes of any Penguins forward line, according to Natural Stat Trick, at 202. That trails only the traditional top line of Rickard Rakell, Sidney Crosby, and Brian Rust. They played 256 minutes. The next closest behind those two is Mantha, Malkin, and Brazeau at 126 of 5-on-5 time on ice. So the fourth line is being leaned on a lot, and they are delivering. They've scored 10 goals when on the ice together this season and allowed just 5. That 66.7% goal for percentage is the best of any Penguins forward line with more than 50 minutes together. Their expected goals rate is good as well. This is not just them sort of getting lucky and being opportunistic. Like, they are generating chances. And all of this comes despite the fact that they are often starting their shifts in defensive zone draws. They are rarely starting their shifts in the offensive zone. I mean, I love that Natural Stat Trick has these stats available, that they have taken 23 offensive zone faceoffs and 113 defensive zone faceoffs, and yet they're still outscoring their opponents. That is something special. That is a game-changing, season-altering dynamic that Dan Muse can lean on. And you just can't say enough about the fourth line. Like, Dan Muse doesn't seem to get tired of being asked about them because he always has gushing things to say. And I liked one of his quotes Thursday night. He said, the three of them together, they've been very, very good. Obviously, they've been huge for us. You've seen it consistently throughout the entire year. And this is the part I really liked. I think every guy on the team knows and appreciates in a huge way how valuable those three players are for us. And that's, I think, a big dynamic here, that like they are infectious. Their energy, the way they play hockey, you cannot help but be impressed. And I think you can't help but let that sort of bleed into your own play and kind of create this ethos of a tougher, grittier team than we've seen from the Penguins in recent years. Blake Lizotte just got his contract extension. Both Dewar and Acciari are free agents this offseason. I mean, Dewar's a 26-year-old who, is up to 17 points this season, does so many little things well. We know he's not some highly skilled player who's going to turn into an offensive engine, but at least he can convert when he gets chances. I would say he's got to be a pretty big priority to keep this offseason and see what he can continue to become. Acciari's 34. That's a little bit different situation, but this is a line that is worth keeping together as much as you can. So that was the little engine that could element of the Flyers win. Let's talk about the very big engine of Gino, of Evgeni Malkin, who had 2 incredible assists Thursday. Just continues to be this wonderful playmaker. And his production this year is taking just this big jump. He's been such a huge part of everything the Penguins have done this season. He is up to 24 assists and 34 points in 31 games. Last year, he had 34 assists and 50 points in 68 games. So that's a major jump. If you look at the advanced stats, I think it's almost more compelling. He has generated on the ice a significant amount of goals above expected, specifically 8.23 goals above expected when Malkin is on the ice. Whereas last year, the Penguins scored 5.14 goals below expected when Malkin was on the ice. So he is creating great chances for his teammates, and they are converting at really, really, really strong, perhaps unsustainable rates. But, when you see the places where he's getting his teammates the puck, it doesn't feel unsustainable. It looks like these are chances they should be able to turn into goals. So credit to Sports Logic for the those particular stats on Malkin, and I'll have a little bit more on him coming this weekend. But one thing that I really want to highlight is this growing connection with Igor Chinakhov, who, as a young Russian, grew up admiring Evgeni Malkin. Now he gets to be his line mate, and he seems to be absolutely relishing it. And there's a real chemistry there. They scored another goal on the rush, as they did over the weekend against Calgary. Just beautiful tape-to-tape passes and allowing Chinakhov to get that shot rocketing off his stick. And the pass to Crosby. If you haven't seen it, it's all over the Penguins social media, just talking about this beautiful brand of hockey, and a lot of other accounts have reposted it as well. Just worth a watch to just see that beautiful power play sequence that ends with a connection we've seen so many times. Malkin to Crosby for a goal. We know that this is Gino's last year of his contract. And that there was some speculation over the offseason that this could be his last year as a Penguin, maybe his last year in the NHL. That still could be true. But Kyle Dubas has talked about there's going to be discussions with Malkin over the Olympic break coming up here in a few weeks. I think those discussions are taking a very different tenor than what we expected coming into the season, because of the way Malkin has played, because of the way that he could say he's been their second best player. He's been incredibly impactful, because when he was out of the lineup, this team struggled mightily. And I just think that it seems hard to believe right now that he wouldn't be back, given how well he's played, given how well he's moving, and given how important he has been to the team. Obviously, that'll be a huge question down the stretch of this season. Can he stay healthy? Can he continue to produce at a level similar to this? But it certainly seems like those contract discussions are going to be starting with a very different premise than they were as we imagined them at the beginning of the season. When we'd seen this decline from him recently, he's back to being an absolute driver of offense. And this Penguins team is back to scoring after the win over the Flyers. A much-needed 6-3 win that actually put the Penguins into the third spot in the Metro. Man, these Eastern Conference standings continue to be absolutely insane. But it was a big one because they came in tied with the Flyers. Each team had 52 points each. This was a win that you needed to get over a team that had played the previous night when you hadn't, and that was struggling and in a stretch where you've been playing pretty well, even with a few losses in a row coming in. So that was Thursday's win over the Flyers. That is Friday's episode of the Post-Gazette Penguins podcast. I really appreciate y'all watching or listening or wherever you're seeing this. And please like and subscribe wherever that may be. We're going to continue coming at you pretty much every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this feed. I'll be on the road with the team next week. They play Saturday against Columbus, and that's going to be their last home game for quite some time. They're playing Saturday against Columbus at 7 p.m. They won't be back home again until January 29th. That's a Thursday. And in between there, they have a 4-game road trip to Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. I'll be there. I'll let you know how everything is going and, sort of document that travel through Western Canada that I'm very, very excited about. And I also, of course, encourage you to go subscribe and check out our work at post-gazette.com. We are still putting out as much great content as we can, really trying to cover everything in this city, sports, news, and otherwise. Of course, there's a whole lot of stories right now about the Steelers coaching search, so I think that is very much worth your time, and I encourage you to check that out. So I'll be back with you Monday after that Columbus game, and as the Penguins start their road trip. It's possible we might alter the schedule a little bit because that Monday game against the Kraken is at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So it may make more sense to come at you a little bit later in the week. But regardless, I will be back with you early next week. Until then, have a great weekend, Pittsburgh, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.